Are you trying to figure out how to plan out your next weight loss and dieting phase? Trying to figure out how long it should be? How are you going to prevent that muscle loss that you worked so hard for the past couple of months? How to plan out your macros, how to plan out your calories, how to structure and plan out the actual dieting phase itself? Well, you're in luck because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And in this video, specifically, we're going to use me, Noah, a dietitian, as the example for this video. In this video, what we're going to look at is we're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about what our current standing is, like how we're going to fulfill and meet these goals that we have. We're going to look at structuring out a dieting phase and look at the calories and macronutrients during that period of time. We'll also touch on food choice and what we'll use to kind of measure and take data as we are progressing through this weight loss phase. Let's go ahead and jump into this one. I'll be real with you guys. Spent the last about 8 weeks, we'll call it 10 weeks, in a bulking phase, like trying to put on some muscle, trying to get stronger in the gym. And in that, right, I was consuming in a caloric surplus. I was trying to build as much mass as possible. And along with that came some body fat. And so we're turning the corner. It's almost springtime. We're getting into summertime. So I figured, let's go on a weight loss journey. Let's go on almost like a summer shredding or like a cutting period of time. My goal here is to lose as much body fat and maintain as much of this muscle mass that I've built over the past couple of months as possible. As far as the goals are concerned and what I'm trying to achieve here, it's going to be roughly about 20 to 25 pounds of weight loss overall. That's about 10% of my initial body weight, and I want a majority of that weight loss to be primarily body fat. So what I want to do is promote or at least prevent any muscle loss and ideally promote some muscle gain. How do we plan on doing that? That's the question, right? So number one, I think in this, what would need to be covered here is going to be calorie deficit. So making sure that I'm following a caloric deficit. Number two is going to be, I'm going to make sure I'm consuming a high protein diet. I want to make sure that I'm consuming enough protein to support my lean body tissue and support the activity that I'm doing. Number three is going to be, I want to make sure that I'm meeting my fiber intake every single day. And then number four is going to be implementing diet breaks throughout this. So I'm going to essentially go for 2 to 3 weeks in a calorie deficit. Then I'm going to spend a week in a diet break or eating at maintenance. Then I'm going to rinse and repeat 2 to 3 weeks at a calorie deficit and then 1 week at a calorie maintenance level. Those are going to be kind of the 4 tactics from a nutrition standpoint that I'm going to use to reach my goals. Next, we're going to look at the training aspect. So for my training, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to maintain 5 to 6 days a week. I'm in a training program that I really enjoy right now. So the reason I want to maintain this workout routine is because it's high volume, high rep ranges, high set ranges. And I feel like it complements a caloric deficit because I'm really not pushing it, right? So I think it's a kind of a good combo, and I can kind of gauge what my strength and my progress is during this calorie deficit versus when I'm, eating a caloric surplus. In addition to that, I want to try to increase my NEAT by just a little bit. So I'm going to lean on my physical activity as far as a deficit component. So use more energy throughout the day is kind of the idea. How I plan on doing that is through my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or also referred to as NEAT. This is going to be, I'm going to measure it by using my steps and my step count per day. Right now, I think I'm averaging about 7,000 steps. So my goal is going to be somewhere in the range of like 10, 11, 12,000 steps per day. I'll try and fall within that. So I'll just kind of increase my NEAT overall. I'll take the dog for an extra walk. I normally do one in the morning. Now I'm going to do one in the afternoon as well. So I think that will cover it. Okay, so to structure out this diet and how this is going to work, because we mentioned it a little bit earlier about these diet breaks and calorie deficit times. And so let's get into the weeds of that. Essentially what we're going to do for our calorie deficit period of time is we're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks pretty focused, right? Lasered in at a pretty aggressive level of calorie deficit. I'll get into that here in just a minute, but during that calorie deficit period of time, we're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks in that. Then we're going to spend a week in a diet break. The point of this diet break is kind of twofold. When we looked at the research, there's a great paper that came out called the Matador study. Long story short, it was trying to mitigate some of the consequences, if you will, of a caloric deficit and weight loss. Trying to mitigate some of that by essentially having the participants doing 2-week calorie deficits and then followed by 2 weeks of maintenance, 2-week calorie deficits, 2 weeks of maintenance. And when they did that, what they noticed when compared to somebody that just did a calorie deficit straight through without any breaks in between, they lost more body fat, retained more lean body tissue, and I think the weight loss actually stayed pretty similar, but it seems like the composition actually changed quite a bit between the two groups. That being said, the goal that calorie deficit is to maximize that fat loss. Then for the maintenance periods of time, it's also to help prevent or promote muscle gain or prevent muscle loss. Over the course of anywhere between 14 to 20 weeks, I should have completed a total of 8 to 12 weeks in a caloric deficit. So the goal is, 2 to 3 week increments followed by a 1 week maintenance phase. I need to get several of these 2 to 3 week increments to add up to about 8 to 12 total increments or total time spent in a caloric deficit. That's going to be my goal until I reach my goal weight of, somewhere around 20 to 25 pounds or 10% of initial body weight loss. So as I mentioned earlier, the calorie deficit component, my goal here is to be a little bit more aggressive during this period of time. It's kind of like this idea that I can get in for 2 to 3 weeks and then I can get out for a week, and then I can get in for 2 to 3 weeks, and I take that really seriously during that period of time. And so with that being said, I'm going to shoot for somewhere in between the range of 500, closer to 1,000 calorie deficit per day. Right now, my calorie maintenance is somewhere in the range of about 2,900 calories per day. 500 calories is 2,400 calories per day, and at 1,000 calorie deficit, it's 1,900 calories per day. I'm going to shoot for somewhere in that 21 to 2,000 calorie range per day, so that I can, really maximize the potential that I'm spending in the caloric deficit, and know that I kind of have a finish line every couple of weeks, and I don't have to spend a super long time in that deficit. So during my maintenance phases, I'm just going to follow my maintenance level of calories. As I lose weight, my overall maintenance level of calories are probably going to decrease, so I'll just follow that accordingly. But for the example right now, we can say about 2,900 calories would be my first week of maintenance level of calories. And, as it decreases, I'll just abide by whatever the calculations are going to tell me. We'll get into that here in a minute. So as far as macronutrients are concerned, first up, we could talk about protein. So protein, I'm going to shoot for in the beginning about 2.2 grams per kilogram. So I'm roughly 216 pounds right now. That equates to about 90 kilograms. I think that was about 200 grams of protein total per day. That is on the lower end. I think that can go all the way up to almost 3 grams of protein per kilogram per day. So we can increase, we have room to increase, but we're just starting out right now. There's no need to. I think that we can see how this 200 grams fares for the first session. As far as carbohydrates are concerned, my focus here is going to be making sure that I'm consuming enough fiber. So I'm consuming carbohydrates that have enough fiber in them, in addition to consuming enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains to make sure that I'm getting enough of the micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals I need as well. As far as fat is concerned, fat is going to be pretty low, roughly around 55 grams per day. And that's about 25% of my total daily calories at about 2,000 calories per day. My focus here is going to be focusing on the essential fatty acids, so making sure I'm getting enough omega-3s and omega-6s, and making sure I'm getting enough of these essential fatty acids through my food that I need per day. So it'll take a little bit of effort just to make sure I'm eating the right foods to get those sources. During my maintenance phases, or my maintenance period of time, essentially my protein is going to probably stay pretty similar. Maybe we'll drop a little bit. So I brought this example up. At 2,900 calories, I would shoot for, in a maintenance level or a maintenance phase, I would shoot for about 180 grams of protein with about 362 grams of carbohydrate and 80 grams of fat. This was compared to my calorie deficit period of time, which was roughly 200 grams of protein, 225 grams of carbs, and 55 grams of fat. So you can see it's 25 grams more of fat, almost 100 grams, almost 140 grams more of carbohydrate, and 20 grams less of protein. So the distribution changes a little bit when the calories increase, the goal being getting enough of the nutrients from the carbohydrate sources and fat sources. And because I'm getting enough calories, I don't have to worry so much about getting a ton of protein in, because I've got enough calories that will make sure that I'm not breaking down muscle tissue for energy, is the thought process and idea behind it. So that'll be 1 week pretty much out of the month. It would be a good way to look at it, is I'll spend at that level. Now, 2 sections left in this planning process is food choice. What I'm going to do here for food choice is I'm going to follow the My Plate dietary recommendations, or also known as the 5 food groups. So I'm going to make sure that I'm choosing sources of foods from lean proteins, low-fat dairies, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables to ensure that I'm not only meeting my calorie and macronutrient requirements, but I'm also meeting all of my micronutrients, so my vitamins and my minerals. Plus, I'm meeting my antioxidant and fiber requirements every single day, which will help all the other body processes in my body as well. So that's from a nutrition standpoint. In addition to the 5 food groups, my plan is to also, I'm going to use a flexible dieting approach where I will track my macros, I'll track my calories to make sure that I'm staying within my allotted budget per day. I'm hitting my protein goals every single day, but I'm also able to choose the foods that I want to choose without having to follow a rigid meal plan or anything along those lines. I can kind of go with the flow and making sure that I'm reviewing that every single week. In maybe my weekly meal planning sessions where I can say, hey, I'm low in calcium. Where's all my dairy products at? Where's my low fat dairy at? And so I can kind of adjust as we go through, but I can still take a flexible approach to my overall nutrition and plan. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into this last section, which is self-monitoring. My goal with self-monitoring here is to monitor my calorie and my macronutrient intake. I'm going to use Cronometer as my tool for this from the micronutrient standpoint and the database of food that it has, that I can kind of give you some of the feedback saying, hey, you're low in vitamin B5, or you're low in vitamin C, and you can then adjust accordingly. That's why I like Cronometer specifically. So that's what we're going to use for this as my self-monitoring tool. Now, as far as my weight is concerned, I've got a Nokia scale that I'll use for my weight and my body fat percentage. It has electrical bioimpedance analysis in there, so I'll be able to get a reading. In addition to my scaled weight and my body fat percentage, I'm going to do bi-weekly measurements. So using like the Taylor measuring tape, and I'll measure my arms, I'll measure my chest, I'll measure my waist, I'll measure my butt, and measure my thighs and calves. And I'll kind of keep track of that as we go down. So I have several data points that I can look at, see if we're trending in the right direction. I can look at weight, I can look at body fat percentage, I can look at measurements. I already have taken some progress pictures. And so as we progress, we'll look at those as well. That being said, that is how I would go about planning a weight loss phase. At least that's how I kind of planned my weight loss phase. And if you want some help looking at, figuring out calories or figuring out macros, I've created some videos recently on that. I'll link to those. In addition, if you want help with creating your weight loss phase or weight loss plan, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put a link in the description below so you can do so. Again, if you got something out of this video and you found it useful, then please give it a thumbs up so it can help someone else find it as well. And if you're on a weight loss journey right now, definitely follow and subscribe for more, because this is the content we're rolling with right now. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys next week.